It's Megyn Kelly time, one of the biggest stars of US broadcasting and host of the must-listen podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show, joins us with her unique take on American news and culture. In a few minutes, we'll get Megyn's verdict on the prospect of Donald Trump Jr. becoming president in 2024. But first, Megyn, you recently spoke out about the tennis player Naomi Osaka courting the press after saying she was too fragile to speak to journalists at the French Open. And now this week, we have another big sporting scandal. The gymnast Simone Biles pulling out of the Olympics on mental health grounds right after receiving an uncharacteristically low score. So there's a lot of controversy over this one, Megyn. But in the States, she seems to be celebrated for quitting. Do you back that narrative?
Well, it's complicated. First of all, I don't see the Simone Biles case as anything close to the Naomi Osaka case. There's a long list of reasons to doubt Naomi Osaka's claims of mental health issues. If you look at the chronology, and you and I have been through that, originally it was, I'm annoyed by reporters, so I'm not doing the press conferences. Then universal condemnation of her by her fellow players, by the Grand Slam tournaments, and even by people writing articles saying, how dare you compare mental health struggles to being annoyed with reporters? Like, that's inappropriate. And even her sister came out and said, she's not depressed, she doesn't have mental health issues. And only then did Naomi say, social anxiety. And then came all of her magazine covers, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so put her to the side. Simone is a different story. Simone is the GOAT. She is the greatest of all time when it comes to gymnastics. And Simone has a history of performing under extreme pressure, despite trauma, massive trauma in her own life. She can do it, and she has done it repeatedly. So what happened? What happened when she went out there this time? It was not her day, Dan. And if you look at what's been going on in Simone Biles' life, it makes sense. She was one of the victims of that creep, disgusting, evil, sicko, Dr. Larry Nassar.
Horrific.
And just keep in mind the broader perspective of USA gymnastics. Those girls, not the ones on this team, but the girls last time around in Rio and prior to that, many of them are victims, serial victims of Larry Nassar and of USA Gymnastics, which allowed this guy for years to be their predator.
Despicable.
And the news has broken, and they've got lawsuits and so on showing that top officials there helped cover up for the guy, which of course they deny. But this is all going on behind the scenes while Simone Biles is out there performing this time around, right? So she said, I want to go out there because I think they're going to brush the story of abuse under the carpet unless one of the survivors is there. So she did it, even though she probably shouldn't have done it, Dan. So I understand why she was not in a good headspace there. And her messaging upon quitting was not ideal. She's like, I wasn't having fun. This one was for me. I get why people are like, I don't like what I heard. You just have to remember the broader context of what these girls have been through, what she has been through. So my bottom line is I support Simone Biles. I want her to get back out there. I'm rooting for 100%. Having said all that, I don't think we need to celebrate the quitting itself as heroic. And I think the knee-jerk instinct to want to celebrate the actual quitting, right, as something wonderful and brave and heroic is off. And I think it's somewhat patronizing because I agree with the people who say if Tom Brady did this in the middle of a Super Bowl and said, I'm not playing the second half for mental health reasons, legit though they may be, no one would be celebrating him. And I think the need to do it for women who lean into mental health challenges, to me, just feels a little patronizing. I think she can take the fans' disappointment. I think she probably expected it. And I don't think we have to lionize, a low moment for her, a low moment for us as a team in order to be supportive of her and what she's been through.
Yeah, and a lot of this narrative actually undermines her great success as a gymnast in the past. I mean, I've seen loads of liberal commentators, Megyn, say things like, this is the best victory in Simone Biles' life. This is better than any of her other successes. And actually, I think that's really sad. I think we can be sad for Simone Biles. I think we can feel for her. Absolutely. I know that I do. But I think to say that quitting is better than all of her previous gold medal successes is just weird. And unfortunately, it sums up where we're at in 2021.
It's sad. And I don't think Simone Biles is the villain here. Larry Nassar is the villain. Team USA officials that covered for him, they're the villains. Her past, that was not her fault, caught up with her that day. That's what we saw when she went over that vault and performed in a way that Simone has never performed before, right? Under pressure and when it counts. So you've got to be empathetic toward what she was going through. She was out there to try to bring a message, which, you can argue about whether that was the right role for somebody doing that kind of thing. But she deserves our empathy, but that doesn't mean the quitting itself is something we need to celebrate. And I just think when you're looking at children today, I still like the old messaging, which is toughness is going to come. You're going to have hard times, hardships. You are going to have mental health challenges throughout your performance, especially as an elite athlete. And the goal is to get tough, to grit it out, to perform at an elite level, notwithstanding. That's half, if not more, of the challenge for these athletes at the Olympics. Simone's not the only one who has trauma in her life, who went out there and performed, or didn't in this particular case. So, it's kind of part of the game. It's a feature, not a bug, of elite athletics. So basically the bottom line is empathy, support, but let's not get carried away with the heroism and all that talk. It's unnecessary and it's patronizing.
Yeah. Agree. Look, let's move on to politics now. New poll shows that Donald Trump Jr. is among the most popular potential candidates to be president in 2024 if his dad, Donald Trump, doesn't run. Could there really be another Trump in the White House, Megyn?
I believe there could. Yeah, I believe that. I mean, it was a small poll. It's only 800 people. But the Republican Party loves the Trumps, and they love Donald Trump Jr. He's the most popular Trump after Donald Trump Sr. So that poll did not include, as you point out, Donald Trump Sr. He still is at the top of the polls in terms of who the Republicans want to run. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, very, very popular. He's kind of like Trump without the tweeting. He's next in most of the polls where Donald Trump Sr. is, but it's close. And then Don Trump Jr. was top of this one, right above DeSantis, though his dad was not included. So, look, he's dynamic, he's articulate, he's a fighter, he gets in people's faces. He went on The View and got in the face of Joy Behar, which we all kind of loved. So he's a fighter, and I think people like that about the Trumps in general. So I think of all the Trumps, besides Senior, he's got the best chance. I wouldn't be surprised if he throws his hat in the ring, though it would require Senior not to want to do it. And Donald Trump Jr. had said prior to this poll, he'd have to decide whether he actually wants the job, right? Like, it's not about just winning. It's about, do I want that kind of heartache in my life? And for the press to just be all over you at all hours. He's got a pretty good life without all that.
Yeah, indeed. And is Trump Jr., Megyn, the Trump that's in a relationship with the former Fox News host, Kimberly Guilfoyle?
Yes, they call him Don Burley. So Kimberly Guilfoyle used to be married to the now governor of California, Gavin Newsom, when he was mayor of San Francisco. Very left, very Democrat. Then she got hired by Fox News, and I think, genuinely in her politics veered more towards the right. And when her time at Fox ended, she hooked up with Don Jr., and they've been together ever since. And she's been a part of the Trump campaign. She's been a fundraiser for Donald Trump Sr. She's a very colorful character. She's very funny when you hear her, on TV shows and so on. They're an interesting couple to watch. I mean, they've both got a lot of baggage, like most public figures. That'll come back to haunt if they decide to, go this route. But look, they don't have more than Senior does, and he made it into the Oval Office.
Kimberly as First Lady, that would be quite something, but I would love to see it, to be honest. Now, Megyn, something really disturbing, and I actually first came to it via your Twitter. Some American medical schools are now teaching that biological sex is a social construct. Really?
Crazy. This is crazy. The transgender activists who are so annoying, they don't represent, in my view, the actual transgender population. They're hardcore activists who I think give the transgender folks a bad name. They've somehow gotten a hold of American medical schools, because now what we've heard, thanks to this report by Katie Herzog, who is sort of guest reporting in Barry Weiss's Substack, is that she's been sort of leaked to by American medical students, one in particular, who taped her medical professor, who apologized to his class for using the term pregnant women. And if you read the groveling apology, Dan, you'd be disgusted. You would have thought that the guy, busted out the N-word or something. The way he's self-flagellating. What he said was pregnant women. And you're not allowed to say that anymore because women are being exterminated. That term is being exterminated. We're sort of being airbrushed out of history in favor of just pregnant people and chest feeding instead of breastfeeding. And the report goes on to say that male and female is being eliminated at the medical level. This is medicine. Medicine cannot go woke. There are biological and sexual differences between men and women, and you actually do need to know whether the person in front of you is a biological male or a trans male to understand anatomy, history, disease likelihood, and so on. And the report is pretty in-depth about how they're making mistakes that are disturbing because they've decided to go along with this make-believe construct.
I know, I know. And one instructor at this school actually, and this is a medical school, as you point out, actually told the students biological sex, sexual orientation and gender are all constructs. These are all constructs that we have created. And as the student says, that's just absolutely ridiculous when you're talking about something like abdominal aneurysms, which are 4 times more likely to occur in males rather than females, which is exactly why they have to have different conversations about the sexes at medical school. I mean, it's just nuts.
Well, can I make another point? So this is related to the conversations you were having about vaccine hesitancy, right? Because why are people having that? In part, it's due to their inability to trust government officials and health officials. They don't trust them anymore. And that's been coming for a long time. But this is one of the reasons why they don't. Because medicine has surrendered to woke ideology. People understand it's no longer science, purely science-based or fact-based. It's now trying to check a box that's going to appease certain people on the far extreme left. And so people, in the way we used to trust the evening news anchor, and we used to trust doctors implicitly, we no longer do for the same reasons, because their bias has been shown, their disgust for some segments of the population has been shown, and they're agenda-driven now. They're not science-driven in way too many cases. So before they start going and castigating people who are hesitant to get the vaccine, I've been urging this for months. The media needs to look at itself. The medical community needs to look at itself and answer some hard questions about their role in getting people here.
Indeed, I completely agree. And Megyn, finally, and this depressed me actually, because I actually thought the CDC had done some decent things over the past couple of months, been very critical of them in the past. But when they said, look, if you're vaccinated, you don't need masks and you can be free and you can travel wherever you want, I thought that's sensible. That's the messaging that we need here in the UK. But this week, they did a complete reverse ferret and they've now reintroduced masks. And even the White House has mandated surgical masks, whether you're vaccinated or not. So, number one, why? And number two, doesn't this just undermine the effort to try and get the vaccine hesitant jabbed?
Of course, because it's essentially saying the vaccines don't work and that getting one will do nothing to make your life better, right? You're still going to get COVID. You're still going to have to wear a mask. And those who are hesitant, they don't want to wear the masks, right? It's the same group of people. And by the way, they're not afraid of COVID, or they already would have gotten the vaccine. And this is all in response to the Delta variant, which it makes no sense, Dan, because what we're being told is that, as you know, the vast majority of people who have died from COVID are senior citizens over the age of 65. 80% of those who have died were over the age of 65. Well, 90% of those people have had at least one jab. 90%. And 80% of those have had a double jab of the vaccine. So they're protected. The population that was dying from this thing is protected. The kids, they're not in the high-risk pool, not even close to the high-risk pool. So they do not need to worry about this. They shouldn't have to be vaccinated, and they shouldn't have to be masked either, as the CDC was admitting just a couple of months ago. But now the Delta variant is spreading. Yes, spread, that's not the relevant factor. We don't need to talk about whether it's spreading fast. We need to talk about hospitalizations and deaths. And those are not rising at an alarming level. And by the way, the people who are getting it in the pockets where it is problematic are the unvaccinated. I don't mean to sound heartless, but that's their choice. They've made a decision not to get the vaccines. They're readily available. So why should the rest of us who have been vaccinated or children who can't be vaccinated have to pay the price for people who have made an educated decision not to get the vaccine? The CDC is being run by an hysteric. Rochelle Walensky is a hysteric. And I don't think we should be listening to this woman anymore. She cries in every other press conference. She wouldn't send her kid to summer camp. Meanwhile, everybody in the States has done that. And we can't be surrendering to the weakest link in the public health chain, which she is.
You're so right. Megyn Kelly, Speaking sense as ever, and the Megyn Kelly Show podcast is available to download now wherever you listen to yours. We'll speak again next week, Megyn. Thank you so much. Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.